Well, evening, Cherries fans, and welcome to a special edition of Up the Cherries in all departments. Obviously, with today's news coming out of Dean Court with the dismissal of Scott Parker. Before we start getting some people's points of views and Sam gives his views, we just have a little message from our sponsor, Dental on the Banks. Okay, Sam, before we come across to you and find out your thoughts on today, it looks like we've got somebody waiting to come on, so we'll bring them straight on in. It looks like we're going to add someone called Danny. Hello, Danny.
Hey guys, you alright?
Hello. Thanks for waiting patiently there.
No problem.
Did you want to share your thoughts on the news coming out of Dean Court today?
Yeah, I was just interested to see you do this chat tonight. Thought it's certainly a good one to be involved in, certainly. Like everyone, probably didn't quite see it coming this early. You did wonder whether it was going to come maybe after the next 2 or 3 games, depending on how things went. I just do not think he's helped himself really with his language from the pre-season friendly. Seemed to stem after the Bristol City game. Camp in Spain, Portugal seemed to go okay. Not a bad couple of warm-up games there. From Bristol City, just demeanour seemed to change completely, whether he realised then he didn't have what he thought he needed. Obviously we don't quite know what's happened behind the scenes. It's obviously come to a head after the Liverpool game, but he must have surely been made aware, you'd like to think, really from the close of last season, what he was going to be dealing with or what constraints were going to be, what he was going to have to do with the squad. I just don't see. I think after Saturday, obviously, the message is continually coming across that he thinks his players aren't good enough. And above all else, what damage does that do to the players? You know, they'll all say, oh, we're behind him, we trust him, but what does it do to them, really? So I don't know whether I'd have made the call this early, but obviously there's been a complete breakdown now, probably in the event of Saturday. And as Scott would say, we are where we are.
Yeah,
So,
I totally agree with what you're saying there. For me personally, I think Saturday's result definitely didn't help. But I think this has probably materialised over a fair few weeks, like you were saying during pre-season. Like there's a comment on the screen now what he said after the Bristol City game. So there's been little indications that he's obviously not been happy with being backed by the board, and it's obviously that the board's got a different philosophy to him. Do you think if there was no tension with the board after the 9-0 thrashing on Saturday, do you still think he'd be in charge today?
that one stung. Obviously, I was there Saturday.
Yes,
And you know, probably if we're brutally honest, probably went there thinking that 3-0 defeat, possibly 4. But you'd hope that we were going to make it competitive and they would probably just wear us down with their quality in the end. But I think the most damning thing about the last, I mean, didn't see a lot of the City game. I was away. I was at the Arsenal game. Obviously, went to Anfield. I think the worst thing for me was you can handle the defeats, but we didn't lay a glove on them. I know there was a slight improvement in the second half against Arsenal, but by then the game was done, and we just don't seem to be giving ourselves chances. And I hate comparing to other teams because every team's different, but you look at Fulham, Forest. I mean, forget Forest if you like because of the way they're spending at the moment. But I was keeping an eye on the Fulham game on the coach back, and all I kept seeing on the headline was Arsenal dominating Fulham. But it was 0-0. Fulham kept themselves in the game, and we just seem incapable of doing that at the moment. We're almost done within the first 5 minutes of the game. I know the Villa game, obviously, we got a great result there, but I think to me the last two and Anfield was something I've never really. We took some beatings under Eddie, we did, but you could see what we were trying to do. And again, I know different squad. Eddie's gone. That's in the past. Fully appreciate that, but in the past you could call it naivety with the way we approached the Premier League, but it was fun. And you could see what we were doing, and I don't see any direction from the players. I don't see any structure to the team. And injuries, yes, but not right. Dom's a massive miss. Obviously, he has been a massive miss. But even Saturday brings him on and plays him wide left. What's the point? He got you 29 goals. Though. It wasn't going to make a difference. We're 5 down by then. But put the guy up front and try and get him some confidence. But yeah. So I don't know. I think he'd have been given more time. Going back to your original question, if he'd not come out and said what he'd said, but the manner of the defeat must have made, I think, the owners think, "Whoa, hold on."
Yeah,
So
yeah. Because we were saying, weren't we, Sam, that if a manager takes a 9-0 hit, regardless to who you are, a manager's got to really go back and assess themselves, haven't they? Really.
Definitely, I totally agree. He would have had to have assessed himself after that game, and obviously over the last couple of days, something's obviously gone wrong, and with the board meetings and chats, and yeah, they've parted ways. Now we've just got to look to move forward. Couple of days left, still no new signings. What signings are we going to bring in now? We don't know, if any. Yeah, hopefully they can find us the right manager in a quick space of time because we need a quick turnaround.
Yeah, you've got someone else just waiting in the background there. Just going to bring them in. Okay. Hello. Hello, is that Manny? Hello, can you hear us?
Good evening, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah,
loud and
excellent.
clear. Loud and clear. Thank you. Yes. Loud
okay,
and clear.
so
just want to say thank you very much for having me on, and also want to sort of shout out your colleague Craig Beasley for sort of introducing me to this channel. I think I remember watching an interview with which you conducted with Mark Halsey, which is very enjoyable. And I've been meaning to sort of come back and support the channel a lot more, but I haven't really had the time. But I just thought I'd come on and sort of say my piece. I'm actually an Arsenal supporter, but I did watch. We played against you this season, obviously, and I think I'm probably going to have to say this. You take a look at the purchases that the club made in preparation for the Premier League. You normally think that if you aren't able to make as many purchases as you want, you'd like to strengthen in areas where perhaps you would need a little bit of strengthening. But just taking a look at this here from the BBC website, you spent a reported 13.5 million on Marcos Senesi from Feyenoord, and you brought the Middlesbrough midfielder Tavernier to your team. You've also got Ryan Fredericks from West Ham, Joe Rothwell from Blackburn, and the goalkeeper Neto from Barcelona. And yet, one of the biggest issues that I felt was when we played you was that there didn't seem to be that much in terms of attacking intent. And obviously, Dominic Solanke being injured didn't really help you. But I'll also mention it in the chat in the chat over here. It is a little bit harsh given that it's rather early, and maybe there is some sort of a school of thought which says that you cannot just go around criticizing your bosses in public like that. But when you because obviously Parker's been here before. He was part of that Fulham team which got relegated. I think it was in 2021, and he obviously had his part to play. And he probably didn't want it to be a case of history repeating itself. So I wouldn't blame Scott Parker very much. It does seem clear that that win over Aston Villa might have been a bit of a false dawn, but it is another message that unless you're willing to make those sacrifices and try and make those purchases, you can't give yourself too much chances of staying. You've got to, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail, and that's sort of the same issue against which people complain and then get ostracized and then lose their jobs. So I think I have pity for Parker. I think he was a good midfielder in his playing days, and he certainly tried hard as a manager. He's just trying to do as good a job. He was trying to do as good a job he can, and I think he was just needing to be a bit too honest, maybe.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Obviously, with Scott's season last year, obviously he did the job. He got us promoted. Where do you think the future lies for Scott Parker now?
Well, I would say that he will have to take a bit of a break from management. I don't want him to, rush back in, because there certainly does seem to be, some potential for development, but maybe he wasn't in the best scenario. I think for now his level might be Championship or League One, so that he can really get to grips with that tough structure over there, and also maybe possibly have a little bit more to say. But once he develops that confidence to when to know when to be assertive and how to put his points forth, and also how to try and get the best out of the team, then maybe he can consider coming back to the Premiership. But maybe he should take a break and then try and look for another job, or maybe better still be an assistant manager to a more established one, so that he can serve another apprenticeship and just learn what on the job, as it were, from a more experienced manager. Harry Redknapp has a huge association with you lot. Jim Smith has been one of his long-time assistants, and he's also had the manager's job at a few other clubs as well. So, being an assistant manager could be something good for him if he needs to continue to just pick up a few finer points. But for now, I think he should just, lay low, enjoy himself, and just take a breather, and then maybe come back stronger after a few months, or maybe after the season. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Danny, just to go back to you briefly, what do you think Parker's qualities were as a manager, as a coach?
As we all know, he was definitely brought in with a remit, get us out of the Championship, get us back to the Premier League. And he seems to, that's two clubs he's got promoted with from the Championship. So he's got, however he did it, and like a lot of fans, I was frustrated with a lot of performances last season, perhaps the defensive thing, but he got the job done, and he got it done well in the end. Yeah, Forest wheeled us in, but they were the team that went on that ridiculous run that one team does a season. But we got the job done, and we did it by beating them. Wasn't the prettiest to watch, but he did what he was brought in to do. The test was always going to be the Premier League. I remember a lot of Fulham fans coming on various forums saying he'll suck the life out of you in the Premier League. I mean, maybe a bit unfair, but this is the guy that refused to play Mitrovic in the Premier League because he was going to employ a certain game plan where he's defensively minded first. Nothing wrong with that. Probably the one thing that was always the problem under Eddie was our goals against column. We were never really going to progress with the amount of goals we conceded under Eddie, but by the same token, we never had a problem scoring, mostly under Eddie, apart from the relegation season where we dried up a bit. But so I think he has got qualities. Like Manny said, good Championship manager. He's obviously got something about him. Players seem to respect him, but the way they reacted to him last year, even when fans were questioning, players, you could see the players were going out and playing for him. I don't think that was an issue. How that's been this season so far with the comments he's made, I'm not sure. But so he has got qualities. I just think maybe he needs to improve his, I don't know whether relationship with fans. He's not really there to have a relationship with fans, but we were so lucky with Eddie, obviously, the way he interacted with the fans as well. But Parker got the job done, but he was also not shy about criticising the fans if he thought the atmosphere was dead. Of course, they would then bite back and say, well, your tactics are boring us to death sort of thing. But like I said, he got the job done. So he's got qualities. He can definitely manage. it's not worked out for him in the Premier League at the moment. Hopefully he takes stock with whatever path. I'm sure he will be back in management. I think he'll probably have to go via the Championship again first. I'll be surprised if he goes into a Premier League job again. But he's got them. I just don't think he obviously wears his heart on his sleeve. I think he does care. I don't think there's any debate about that. But I think the way he's gone about it, he's just too vocal. And as I say, he must have known what he was facing this season. Surely, I can't see they've suddenly halfway through pre-season sprung on him. Oh no, you can't make any more signings unless you get rid of X, Y, and Z. I'd take the Dembele signing, but what's that about? I mean, he signs him permanent in January, and he almost alluded to himself after Liverpool. He brought players in to get us over the line. So, but what? And then did he realise straight away that they might not be good enough for the Premier League? I mean, Dembele struggled to start in the Championship when he was bought. He got us a couple of good goals, which, the one at Blackpool's obviously, very important, gone down in legend. But he obviously said straight away, look, you're not going to play this season. I don't think you can do it at this level. I don't know whether he can do it at this level, but surely he's got to be given a chance, bearing in mind that we're not spending a lot. And he's probably got the one player that's got something a little bit different in the fact that he'll run at defenders. Again, is that in Parker's remit? Does he want players like that? I'm not a manager. We're all armchair managers, but it's. I don't hate the guy. I never particularly warmed to him. I just think he made a rod for himself, how he's been before pre-season, really. And from that moment, it always seemed like it was never. As I say, I thought maybe it'd be another month on after the next 3 or 4 games, where I wouldn't say we've got easy opposition, but opposition you'd hope that we'd maybe compete against and try and get the odd points from, like Villa, like we did with Villa. But it's gone now. So where do we go? Who do we bring in? Apparently we've got no one else lined up. So
yeah, I mean, when you look around, all the news and all that, there's not very many names, if any names at all, being bashed about with our club. But it makes the transfer window, well, what's left of this transfer window now, very, very tricky. Because if you are a manager that's going to be interested in the job, obviously, by the time everything's all done, sealed, signed, delivered, it will all be window shut. So you're going to have to operate with the squad that you've got here. Do you think finding a replacement for Parker now might be a bit tricky to get the right candidate in?
It depends if they're looking for a certain style. I mean, one of the names, as you've seen that straight away is at the top of the list, is Sean Dyche today. That was suggested 2 years ago when Eddie left, and I laughed at the time, but that was when we still had Eddie's squad, and I just thought you can't bring. Dyche could not manage the squad that Eddie left to play his style of football. It would be totally alien to them. I think we've probably now got more players within the squad that could adapt to Sean Dyche's. Not saying he should be appointed, by the way, but I'd be more receptive to it. A lot of people have turned around and said, "Oh no, it'll suck the life out even more." But what do you want? The one thing he probably would do would be at least keep. We might not win a hell of a lot of games with the squad we got, but we'd probably be more likely to be 0-0 still after 75 minutes, or 1-1 or something like that to give you a chance of nicking one. But that's the point. Whoever's out there is unemployed for a reason. His situation is slightly different because he was obviously long term with Burnley. He hasn't come into anywhere since, but he'll be one that finds himself back in management soon, I'd imagine, whether it's with us or somebody else. But they'll choose someone. I don't think they'll go with Gary O'Neill for the rest of the season or anything like that. But like you say, who's going to come in now when they're not going to be able to buy anybody until January?
Makes the situation a lot more trickier. What's your thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky situation after whoever comes in. Obviously, they're not going to come in before the transfer window ends. So whoever we have got at the time will be the players that they have to deal with till January. And with, like you said, with the people out there at the moment, there are not many names out there that are shouting at me to say, yes, bring them in. Like Sean Dyche, yeah, he could do a job. But yeah, I think we've just got to take game by game at the moment now. With Wolves tomorrow, I think it's still going to be a good chance for us to win with the squad we got.
Yeah. Manny, just coming back to you, obviously from an outsider's point of view, being an Arsenal fan, but what which of those managers on the bookies' latest list below here that you would think would be suitable to take over from Scott?
Well, here's the thing, guys. It's been mentioned that Gary O'Neill, who I remember well as a combative midfielder for both Portsmouth and Middlesbrough, if I'm not wrong, I think he's been given the job on a part-time basis, and he might possibly work with the team. We also had a similar situation when we got rid of Unai Emery before Mikel Arteta came in, and it was Freddie Ljungberg who actually took up the reins for a bit of time and sort of steadied the ship, as it were, until January when Arteta came in. I actually wanted Ancelotti to come in, Carlo Ancelotti, who had left Napoli at that time, but he went on to move to Everton, and the rest is history. But I think there is some sensibility in saying that taking it game by game would be, the best thing to do, because although these candidates are really, really good, and Dyche certainly looks to be one of the favourites, if there's such a conflict between the manager and the owners are the type of people who can just say, you know what, you've been mouthing us off a bit too much. We're giving you your P45, your pink slip, on your way, son. I can't seem to think think of any manager who would like to walk into that situation, because it literally would be like trying to stick your hand into the fire, as it were. I would say that with O'Neill in the job, it might not be a bad idea to sort of let him continue and take it on a game-by-game basis, and then hopefully by that time the situation can stabilise and you can look for a new manager in January. I take the point that it may be a little bit too long by then, because with August being over, you've got September, October, November, and then December. But in January, you could also hopefully see the club a little bit more stabilised, with a little bit more clarity in its position. And that could be the best time maybe to bring in the new manager to take the heat off Gary and sort of try and steer the ship, if you can, as it were. And of course, to take charge of a team which has been beaten to the tune of 9-0 and has seen its manager sacked, I think the players are going to be very demoralised, and I seriously do not believe that any manager right now would want to take the job. I don't even know if the players would necessarily feel comfortable with a new manager being brought in immediately. So I would say that O'Neill might be the best choice for now. But from those names, I certainly think Dyche could be given an opportunity. I'd like to know from all of you how you would feel about Harry Redknapp possibly coming back. It's been announced as a very sentimental pick. I seriously don't know if it'll happen, but he does have an affinity with your club and the fans and the area. So could he perhaps possibly come back in for a few months and try and work a miracle? Who knows?
Yeah, Sam, what's your view on the possibilities of maybe Harry coming back and taking the reins?
I think that would be a very good opportunity for us. I think he would do a good job. And I think we would have a very good chance if he came in and we could stay up in the league. I think he's made a good point with regards to Gary O'Neill. I think for now, Gary O'Neill could be the best person to take game-by-game basis, and I think the World Cup might do us a favour, taking 6 weeks out of the league. But yeah, I would definitely take Harry Redknapp on. If he wanted the job tomorrow, I'd say come on in.
Yeah, Danny, what's your thoughts on that one?
I'm not so sure about Harry now. That's not. Sam's made great points there. Actually, it all depends, like you say, the situation we're in with the timing of it. I think it's one that would divide opinion again. Some would love it, some wouldn't. I don't know how I'd feel about it. He said to me 2-3 years ago, then possibly, yeah. I'm just not sure. I think the last couple of jobs he's been in just hasn't worked out for him. Now, I know he knows the club, he lives in the area, so that changes things, obviously. And I think he'd probably get enough fans on board to at least raise the spirits about the place. I mean, I said just a minute ago, I don't think Gary O'Neill get it. I mean, you make a great point about the World Cup. That possibly complicates or helps us, whichever way you want to look at it at the moment. Because if suddenly Gary O'Neill took charge of the next 4 games and we say, I'm just pulling a figure out of the bag here, got 7 points, something like that, and there was no one still really lined up, you'd probably think, well, is there any point at the moment in changing that? I know we've all been there before where a caretaker manager's done a great job, gets appointed fully, and then it goes down the pan again. But if he did suddenly say get 7-8 points out of the next 4 games, if he was in charge that long, then yeah, you're only then talking probably another month till or 5 weeks to the World Cup break. What do you do then? Because it does come back to, as you say, the complication here is the fact that nobody's going to be able to, no manager's going to be able to come in and buy anybody until January, unless we've got a couple of signings that are almost done we don't know about yet that will walk through the door in a couple of days. But if that's true, they're not going to be the new manager's signings. So it's a really out of the sort of managers we've had in the last couple of years, this is the more complicated, I think, because of the timing of it. And we're all saying, oh, maybe Sean Dyche, but would he, like you say, the next thing is if we approach him, he might just turn around and say, not with the situation you're in at the moment, boys, or like so who knows. But I'm not saying no to Harry. I'm a little bit indifferent about it at the moment, but whoever we get, if it's not Gary O'Neill in for the sort of medium term, it's got to hopefully be someone that at least get the spirits raised a little bit, and that we can just get behind them. I don't think there's going to be a quick fix here. You mentioned it earlier. I think tomorrow or on Saturday, we just hope that maybe he can get the team together. Whoever he picks, we'd all have our views about that, but he's the coach. He's got to make the decisions. But just at least play players to their strengths. If you're going to play Dom, play him up top, or play him with play more up top and Dom just off him, but through the centre, please, not out wide. It's like we need players. If you're going to play Anthony, play him on the left for his relationship with Jay-Z. Don't stick him out on the right. It's. I'm not saying these guys should be picked. I'm just saying if you do, don't start putting, square pegs in round holes. It's just in our situation we can't afford it. But bar injuries, Kelly was missing Saturday, no one's fault. Somebody had to play in defence, but the players we have got, like Dom, who got you 29. We know he's not going to score 29 goals this season, but play him up top. If he stays injury free, he'll probably get you 12 to 15, which would be a good return. So.
Yeah. I mean, from my point of view on Harry, I mean, I heard him on Talk Sport today, and basically he was saying, whoever takes team on will basically be a miracle if they keep them up. So I think maybe for Harry coming in, I think he's enjoying watching football now and doing what he's doing now, and fair play to him. He's had a great managerial career, and he'll always be a legend at Bournemouth. But I mean, if you're someone like Gary O'Neill, and you got Harry at the end of the phone in your caretaker capacity, I'm sure that will be probably an option for Gary O'Neill to maybe pick Harry's brains. So I reckon in maybe some sort of advisory capacity, but I don't think I could see Harry coming back to the club full time. In all honesty, I think it'd be lovely, and I think everybody would love to see it. Especially if you've been supporting Bournemouth for a long time, it'd be kind of nice to see him come home and finish maybe his managerial career at Bournemouth. But I think myself personally, I can't see it happening. But yeah, you never know. Football is a strange game, and we might wake up tomorrow and there might be a manager in place, but or at least some confirmed names that might be coming in. But I think the club's going to take its time to make the right decision, because obviously this next decision is a very, very important one. I mean, Gary O'Neill's going to probably at least have 2 games. If he pulls out some results out the bag, then who's going to rule him out? Maybe the club might take a little bit more time, give him a few more games, see how things go, and in which case, Gary's name's got to be in the hat as well, because obviously he's taking charge of the lads tomorrow night, and we as fans are going to want to see an improvement on performance, if nothing else. So I think it's going to be an interesting week for Gary, definitely, and for Tommy and for Sean. It's good to see them two getting back involved, because what I think we've lacked this season, there's real leadership on the pitch, someone to be accountable for the players. I mean, I know Lloyd Kelly's captain, but like Saturday for me, there didn't seem to be a leader out there. And you got someone of Tommy's caliber coming back onto the coaching field who is a born leader. So hopefully some of that can rub off on some of the lads, and hopefully we can, really have a good couple of games coming up. And as we all know, these next two games are pretty vital in terms of getting points. These are the kind of sides we want to get points on, as we all know. I mean, coming from a board perspective, obviously the board have a plan. Obviously, from outsiders looking in, it looks like the club's trying to obviously protect itself. Obviously Max was trying to look after the club, which is, in my opinion, absolutely right. And also the infrastructure of the club. I mean, a lot of people don't see something like our training ground being important. I mean, what's your views on that? Would you rather see investment in the team, or would you rather see, which is what obviously Scott wanted, or would you rather see investment in the infrastructure? So for the future, we can build our own,
Yeah.
our own academy, bring our own players in, develop. I mean, what's your views on that?
It's a tough question when you're in the Premier League, isn't it? Because if you're in the Premier League, you want to stay in the Premier League. So therefore, you tend to say you have to invest in the squad. But they first announced the training ground 5-6 years ago. Started very basic work on it. It halted. It annoyed people. So it's so difficult. I think they've learned from the first time in the Premier League the money we spent on players, the wages we paid, and I know you've got to do it if you're in the Premier League. It comes back then to the size of the club. It's all a vicious circle, isn't it? While we're only got 11,700, COVID hit us as hard, or if not harder than anyone because of that. It hit every club hard. And I appreciate there are clubs that have gone out of business in the last few years as well, and we were close to that, so we know how that would potentially feel. But I think we had to make the sales we did when we got relegated. Callum, Nathan, Josh King, they all had to go off the books. We got good money for them, well, certainly for Nathan and Callum anyway. I think the board have said this time, yes, we'll try and invest in the team, but it's going to have to be at a lot lower level. We can't be going out and spending a 25 million on Jefferson Lerma or paying somebody 120 grand a week at the moment. I don't think, as Max said in his statement today, sustainability. I mean, I thought it was very interesting he made the statement. I don't recall him coming out and making a statement when we've had a managerial change, or it's always been Blake. He was obviously cut deep, upset with what Scott said at the weekend, how he put about it. But I think they are trying to balance it, trying to keep us in the Premier League maybe for, it definitely would be great. It was a miracle we stayed 5 years before, really. But try and keep us in there a couple of years at least, then try and get the training ground built, and then you move to it. I can't see a new stadium. People go on about a new stadium. I can't see it happening anytime soon. I don't think it's viable for us at the moment. And we've seen it with other teams. I hate to say it. Yes, our fan base would grow, but we'd struggle to fill an 18,000 seat stadium, I think, personally. People would say, they'd come, especially if we stayed in the Premier League. We'd probably still only average 15, maybe, in my view. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it, with the stadium capacity? Sam, what's your opinion on that?
With regards to the stadium, yeah, I agree at this point. The stadium's not the important thing. The most viable thing, I think, would have been to bring in a couple more players. With the training, obviously, building the training complex, I think it is a good idea. But I think the main thing is, for the first year, we need to stay in the Premier League. So if we need to put in a tiny bit more investment now for the team, and then next year get the training complex once we're a bit more settled, then that would have been better. But at this point, obviously, we're up in arms. We haven't got a manager. The team at this point feels like it's falling to pieces a bit. So something needs to be done there. But yeah, we just don't know what's around the corner. But yeah, definitely with the ground, I wouldn't bother with that at this point. Yeah, it's not viable.
Yeah, okay. let's go over to Manny. Let's see Manny's views on this. So obviously with Arsenal, we've got a massive infrastructure. You know, they've got a world-class stadium, world-class training facilities. Do you think it's something important for a club the size of Bournemouth and the position we're currently in to concentrate on the infrastructure, or what would your opinion be?
Oop.
Oh, oh, we've lost Manny there. Um, yeah, if he logs back in, we'll ask him then. Oh, he's coming back on. Let's just add him back in. Hello.
Hello there.
Yeah.
I do apologise. There was a problem with the internet connection, so I had to refresh, and I do hope it wasn't an inconvenience for you, gentlemen.
No, that's no worries. I was just about to move across to you. Obviously with a club like Arsenal, obviously in terms of infrastructure, you know, you've got a world class stadium, world class training facilities. Do you think infrastructure is important for a club like Bournemouth at this stage? To develop a training
Not
ground,
really.
to attract.
Not really, no, and I'll tell you why. Because the biggest criticism that a lot of Arsenal fans have right now is that with our stadium, where we moved to after leaving Highbury, that was beset with its own problems. I mean, the debt that we accrued in terms of building that stadium, it had to be paid off any which way. And then, of course, you've got the current owners who, I mean, under whose stewardship we've been reporting losses financially. We've always been a club that have been able to spend fairly well, so to have those losses, it's a shock to the system. It sort of makes you wonder how we're being run. So, when it comes to being in the Premiership, I mean, the infrastructure is one thing, but there are several clubs, mind you, who have been able to make, that they came into the Premier League, they performed quite well, and they didn't have too much in terms of infrastructure, but whatever they had, they were able to make it work. And the biggest fear I have is that if you invest too much in the infrastructure per se, what happens if it gets relegated? You don't want to have a situation where, as a club, you spend too much, whether it may be on players or further development, anticipating a wonderful golden age, and then seeing it all end up for nothing if the club loses money. And of course, with a connection with dear Harry, Portsmouth is an example of a club which went into administration mainly under his stewardship. I mean, maybe that happened sort of after he left. And then, of course, he came back and took them to the 2010 FA Cup final. But then by that time, Portsmouth were sort of already in it. So I think the biggest priority is to make sure that you have the players to enable you to stay in the Premiership. And a sort of analysis over here is when I take a look at the top scorers, only 4 of your strikers have scored, and each of them have scored 1. Lerma's got 1, Keith Moore has 1, Marcondes and Genesini are the other 2. So it seems clear to me that however well drilled you are defensively, it's goals that can give you some points. And Everton have found that out as well, which is why they signed Neil Maupay. So it seems to me that maybe the tactics need to improve in sort of enabling the likes of Moore and maybe Jadon Anthony to get some service and maybe score a few more goals. And hopefully that can give you a little bit of confidence. I would say with the infrastructure, you might want to hold off on that, because then, again, just as with the manager situation, you want to have some more clarity on your situation to see if there is a way you can try to move on from it and just take it slowly, one game at a time, and then see if you can build from there. And then maybe you can talk about the infrastructure. I mean, I know you've been in the Premiership before, and obviously, you've come back and you want to try and stay here. But the real aim should be to try to improve the team first, and then if you're able to stay, then you can talk about an infrastructure. The best example, of course, is Leicester. Under Nigel Pearson, if I'm not wrong, or the manager who came after him, I think it was Ranieri, they avoided relegation, stayed in the Premiership, and the next season, 2016, they won it. And since then, they've been, competing as their usual team, which punches above their weight, winning the FA Cup, qualifying for Europe, playing well against some good teams, and really just being thereabouts. And they were in a position where, under their owners, they could build the infrastructure they needed. So I'd like to see you do some rebuilding of the team first and see if you can stay up. And then you can talk about the infrastructure. Because mind you, if you do get relegated, you will lose quite a bit of dosh. And I really don't think that that would be the best platform on which to expand your infrastructure.
Hmm. Yeah, some very good points there. I mean, just touching on what you said about scoring goals and who scored goals for us this season. Obviously, myself and Sam and Danny be used to Bournemouth being able to score. We've always conceded in the Premier League, but we've always managed to score. And I don't know about whether you or yourself, Danny, or Sam, whether you think the goal's gonna, still be a struggle to come by now that Parker's moved on. Obviously, we've got Gary O'Neill now, who's obviously gonna put his philosophy into the team for as long as he possibly can. What if you in Gary O'Neill's shoes now, knowing how many goals we've scored and conceded? What would your plan be? If you want to go first, Danny, for example.
It is. I mean, Manny makes a great point about goals. To be in the Premier League, you've got to be able to score goals. If you can't score goals, you won't stay in the Premier League. No matter. I mean, that's what we had under Eddie. Yes, we were naive, as I say, but it was fun, and we could score 2 or 3 goals in the Premier League against most sides. Not everyone. Always had our problems against the cities, the Arsenal. Well, we got a few against Arsenal in the end. Sorry, Manny, but no, we did the last time in there, but. It was only really the cities, Liverpool's. We had the memorable 4-3 against Liverpool, but we generally didn't find goals hard to come by. So you always thought going to Bournemouth, especially when you're playing the teams in and around you, Wolves, Leicester, teams like that, you thought wouldn't ever say you were confident of winning, but you thought we're going to give this a go because we can score goals. The problem is last year. Billing started on like a house on fire. Obviously, Dom carried on through the season, but there wasn't a lot of goals spread around last year. When we were in the Premier League before, we had a much even spread. With Callum, then he got injured. Josh stepped up. You still had midfielders that would chip in. We signed Brooksy, God bless him. He chipped in with a few goals. Pugh, Arta, players like that. The problem I see at the moment, even if we change our philosophy, is I struggle to see where a lot of the goals, if Dom's not scoring them, Kiefer, I think, can with the right service. Where they're going, I don't see a lot coming from midfield. That's the problem. We know Christie is not great at conversion. Anthony, unknown at this level, who knows? He did well against last season. But we've certainly got to. Yes, I think you have to accept we're going to concede goals the way our squad is at this level. It's just whether we can balance it and score a few. And I think Gary's chance at the moment, Gary's priority at the moment, you don't want to go and ship 5-6 goals every game, obviously, but we've got to start playing a game where we at least look like we can score a goal or a couple of goals. I say I'm not a coach. We've all got opinions on what formations we can play, but whatever happens, we pray till Dom stays fit. I think that's crucial. And then I think we can work with it. If we can get him getting a few, get Kiefer getting a few, maybe chipping in if Anthony plays regularly, Billing again. Tavernier again. I know he didn't score a hell of a lot on Middlesbrough, but who knows? If we get him in the right positions, he might chip in with a few. But we've certainly got to get a game plan where, because let's face it, I know who we've played the last 3 games, but we haven't looked like scoring a goal. We've not looked like scoring a goal in that. I mean, Villa, we scored 2. I mean, I think it helped that we scored after 2 minutes. Obviously, you've got something to hang on to there. But I think if you look at that game, we didn't exactly create a plethora of chances. We scored early, had something to hang on to, and then got one late, great header from keeper. But we've certainly got to be more threatening in an attacking point if we're to have any chance.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sam, what's your view on that?
So yeah, with regards to scoring, we've definitely got to utilise Kiefer more. With regards to Dom, I wouldn't have him on the left. He needs to be up or just behind Kiefer. So personally, myself, I see Kiefer Moore as more of the old Dzeko coming off the bench and getting goals each game. I would personally myself start with Solanke and then bring Kiefer Moore in as a sub to come on and try and get you a goal if you're 1-1. with regards to the other attackers, they get a couple of goals here and there, but yeah, I think we really need to utilise the two main strikers we got now. Start to find some goals from somewhere.
Yeah. There's an interesting comment here from Ashley Hall. Should have given Woodgate a chance for a whole season, as I think he deserved it. He wouldn't touch us with a barge pole now, even if we begged him to return due to him getting shafted by the board. Jonathan Woodgate, I know he's been on some of the on some of the betting websites as a favourite. Sometimes he's 9-1, sometimes he's 16-1, depending. Danny, obviously, from what you can remember of Jonathan Woodgate, do you think that would be somebody that would be a contender to bring back in, or do you think that boat sailed?
I don't know. I'll put my hands up about Woodgate. He did a lot better than I thought he would do when he. I mean, some people say, "Oh, he took us over sixth and we finished sixth." I mean, I'd say yes. That is true. Obviously, the facts speak for themselves. But I think we qualified mathematically for the playoffs with 3 or 4 games to spare, if I recall. In the season Woodgate was in charge, and for whatever reason, the team down tools after that. I think it was to our detriment because it meant we had to play Brentford over 2 legs, which was probably the team we didn't want to play over 2 legs at that stage. But he certainly got the team playing for him, and we weren't shy at scoring goals. And again, it was at the Championship, not Premier League. About him should have been given a chance. I don't think it was ever a chance of him getting it. I think it was probably well known. If we could have got Scott Parker after Tyndall, we'd have got him. We couldn't get him out of Fulham at that point. We always wanted Scott Parker, so we got him at the end of the season. So I don't think Woodgate was ever going to be given a chance. I would have thought he was probably aware of that, even if it wasn't told to his face. If he was going to get the job, it would have been said as soon as that season has finished and we'd lost to Brentford. But I don't know. He seems pretty happy doing his punditry now. Whether he wants to get back into coaching, you'd have to ask him. I don't think that would be the appointment, but that's just my opinion. Got nothing against the guy. I think he did really well. He was very good with the media and the fans. Well, obviously there weren't any fans in the stadium when he was managed, but the fans liked him. They related to him. They the up the cherries remark will always be legendary after the Norwich game. But no. I don't think he'll come back. I don't think it's the appointment, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, Sam, Woodgate, man for you, or?
Personally, myself, I don't think he's going to be the man to come in and try and keep us up. I think, for the Championship, I think that's a very good level for a person like Woodgate. I think now we definitely need someone with a bit of experience, at least with Premier League, like we said, so Sean Dice has got that. And even Chris Wilde is there on the outskirts on the rookies. I wouldn't personally myself have someone like Woodgate in at this point.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, there is some interesting names being linked, but some names that have been linked with us before, obviously, for example, John Terry and Thierry Henry. Obviously, Thierry Henry is obviously a massive legend of the game, just like John Terry. What would your thoughts be on them if either of those two were approached? I believe they were approached previously, if we believe what we hear on the news and in the press. Do you think it's time for maybe one of those guys to be given a chance at it?
John Terry, not so sure, only because it's like Sam said, it's usually, we need, people say all the people that have got experience have been sacked. It's just the world of football at the moment. Most managers are going to end up sacked outside of the top managers. Terry, I don't think would be the appointment at the moment. Could be wrong. He could come in and inspire. Thierry Henry's an interesting one because he was mentioned before, and so was Patrick Vieira, and I was dead against Vieira. Well, look what he's done with Palace. He's got them organised and done a really good job with them. So I'd hold my hands up with that and say I was totally wrong about Vieira. Maybe Thierry would do the same thing, maybe not. I don't know if he'd want to come to us, to be honest. Are we big enough? I know if he wants to get into management, he's got to start somewhere in the Premier League, albeit with Bournemouth is the Premier League. But there is a fair chance with this squad that we're not going to survive this season. Let's be honest about it. I'm not saying we can't. I think we can. I really do think we can, but with the right leadership. But does he want to risk his first real proper managerial, being taken a club down for the Premier League? I don't know. I think someone like a Dyche, and Nuno's an interesting one. Whether he'd be interesting, I don't know. He knows the Championship, he knows the Premier League. The others, Wilder, maybe would he be stepping out of his comfort zone coming down south? Would he? He seems to be struggling a little bit with Borough at the moment, not having the effect with them as he did with Sheffield United. But who knows? On the list at the moment, you don't know how. Obviously, it goes back to don't know how Gary O'Neill. He's going to have at least two, possibly. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up with 3 or 4 games in charge of the process. But with that, I'm probably looking at Dyche. Rooney, not a chance, I don't think. And would we want that? But Nuno Santo, would he be interested? Maybe. And as I say, Thierry Henry, if he was interested, who knows? But would he really be that interested?
Yeah. If we go over to Manny, do you think this could be a job for Thierry Henry? Is this the right time for him to take a club over in the situation we're currently in, or would you say no?
No, no, and I'll tell you why. Because he's enjoying himself right now, being a part of the Belgium setup, along with Roberto Martinez, who of course managed Wigan and Everton. And I definitely do not believe that he would want to leave that prestigious job. It might not be as well paying as maybe being a club manager in the Premiership, but he gets to work with good quality players, and for him to try and come and take this job, given the state the club is in, I really don't know if he would want to do that. Even considering that after the World Cup, he could potentially be available if he decides he wants to move on. He probably will be considering taking a coaching job in his native France, maybe, where he knows the game a lot better. John Terry might be a fairly interesting shout. Obviously, his years of working as Aston Villa's assistant coach could be fairly helpful because, I mean, he's worked with the club when they were in the Championship and when they were in the Premiership, I think. Actually, I don't recall if he left Aston Villa after Derby County beat them in the playoff final. No. That was when he. I don't recall that, but I think he was during the. I think he was assistant coach when they were in the Premiership for a season under Dean Smith. So he does have a little bit of experience, but again, to ask him to try and take that job would be a bit of a daunting task. I think you've all pretty much nailed it when you said that an experienced manager who can steady the ship is the best chance that you have, and Dyche would be probably the better option given his good record with Burnley and the fact that he was able to help them survive more often than not. And as for Woodgate, those bridges have been burnt. No amount of work will ever repair that. So Dyche would be the option. But I think we've also agreed that maybe O'Neill needs to be given a few games, let him steady the ship, and sort of, just calm the whole shock down, if you will. Trying to go for a new manager would be just it would be whiplash, and I think the boys. It's fair to say that the boys still might need some time to recover from Parker getting sacked. Let O'Neill take charge for a few games, and then you can talk about that later. But Dyche might be the best choice. And as for Santo, he did do a decent job with Wolves, but when he left, it was considered that he had taken the club a bit as far as he could go. And obviously, his stint at managing our local rivals, Tottenham, was an absolute disaster, where he was deemed to be, frankly, just unpersonable in many ways. And so, having someone like him with his level of abrasiveness might not be what Bournemouth would need. So, Dyche might be the best opportunity, but you might need to wait a bit before you can get him. Of course, if Dyche were to inquire about interest in Bournemouth and say, I'd be really happy to take charge of the situation, then that's a bonus. But if he does, he will have to have a talk with the owners and make sure that things will be on a good footing. And even then, I think he might have the good sense to say, I'll hold off for a bit and then maybe consider it sometime in January, maybe, or maybe a little bit sooner. We'll see.
Yes, that's a very interesting point. Um, the players, obviously, there were some comments from Scott regarding basically, I suppose, in some respects, saying about the squad not being good enough, obviously to stay in the Premier League. I mean, how do you think that would affect the players on the training field and going into the next game? Obviously to have the manager. Obviously, the manager wants to add to the squad, but obviously the group of players that you've got already, you don't really want to, kind of say things like that. So, how do you think that will affect the guys on the training field, especially after that 9-0 defeat?
The 9-0 is a big psychological barrier to overcome for any player because it's against Arsenal we're 2 down after 10 minutes, against Liverpool we're 2 down after 5.5, 6 minutes, whatever it was. God forbid if we should concede early tomorrow in the first 5-6 minutes, that's going to be the problem for O'Neill then, because we'll all see the players go, come on, like they will, but psychologically they'll be thinking, no, not again, come on, can't we just hold out for 5 minutes here or something like that? But on the training ground, I don't know. I don't think the player at the beginning of pre-season when he was making noises, Scott, about the squad, I think they'd have taken that with a pinch of salt, thinking, it's just him trying to get the board to get their hands in their pockets, help them out a bit more. The last couple of games, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I mean, yes, we lost 9-0. We were always going to lose that game at Anfield, let's face it. We accept that. But at the end of the day, he sent them out with the tactics, whatever they were. He sent them against Arsenal with the tactics. Again, another game we were probably always going to lose the way Arsenal started. And for Manny, I'll just say I really rate Arsenal this year, and this is what you get for giving a manager time and sticking with him. In the early part, it wasn't easy for Mikel, but they've stuck with him. They've now recruited well this season, and not saying you're ready to challenge for the Premier League over season. You may think differently, but top four is certainly within grasp, I'd say, fine you don't get a raft of injuries. But you don't often get that patience in the Premier League. The managers that have had success have had, I mean, Klopp took a while, spent a lot, so had to ship a lot out. And look, he's got Liverpool playing, alongside City, some of the best football we've seen in the Premier League. We're not going to do that. I know that. We're not going to play that football or spend that much. But at the moment, for a team like us, you might say we can't afford to give a manager time, but you've got to get someone in that's going to at least have time to get his ideas. This is the problem we've got at the moment. They're used to Scott. This squad is Scott Parker's squad now. They know the way he works, what he wants to, what he wanted them to do, how they go about it. Someone like a Dyche, I would imagine, will come in and go, we're not playing like that. He might like the defensive part of it, but he won't like the passiveness in getting the ball forward or anything like that. But so it's going to take time. It's not just going to flick a switch. I think, as you say, we just got to hope, being Bournemouth fans, that O'Neill can at least steady them, get players playing in there where they feel comfortable, in a system they feel comfortable in, and hope to God we don't concede early in the next couple of games. And at least, because if we end up losing 2-1 tomorrow, 1-0, it's not great. But if we've given a game, if we've given an account ourselves, maybe the Wolves keepers played a blinder, maybe we've just not finished our chances, you can then show them the video and go, look, we're not a million miles away from this. But if we go down early tomorrow and end up losing 2 or 3-0, or 3-0, anything worse than 2-0, again, it's even more psychological then, I think.
Yeah, no, you're probably absolutely spot on there. And we got going to bring Max into the chat now. Hello, Max.
How's it going, mate? How's you?
Yeah, not too bad, buddy. So we've had quite a few hours to digest the news that obviously Scott's gone. What's your views?
Yeah, I literally woke up this morning and I saw on the AFCB tweeted Scott Parker's he's got the sack, and because listening to his what he had to say on the Liverpool game, it's because I think it was where he's bad mouthing the club. Is that right?
Well, obviously he had some views about the club's transfer.
Yeah. he was saying what he thought
Yeah.
was right, but then I think who's our owner, Maximin, isn't it?
Maxim
The
Denham, yeah.
club owner. Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm not having none of this. You can get out. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is with us is we've never been one of them clubs that's just sacked managers just like that. Because we've had Eddie Howe for like 9 years, and then we had Woodgate for a year until we had Tyndall, and he went. Now we've got Scott Parker. Now he's gone. So hopefully we don't really turn into one of them teams that just sack our managers like every month.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is the next choice of manager is very vital that the club get it right.
Because the game against Wolves, we I don't know what's going to happen, but one of us is going to have to line up the team, and hopefully it pays off. I mean, coming against a good Wolves team that drew at home to Newcastle, because they were a bit unfortunate really because of that last minute volley from St Maximin from Newcastle. They look a really good team, very well organised, very well drilled. But as we're at home, I think we'll have more advantage because the fans will want to get over the 9-0 defeat and get behind the team again to get them going back to how we normally play at home, and that hopefully we can get a result 3 points and a 2-1 win. 1-1 at the worst case.
Okay. So out of the people that are shortlisted for the job at the minute, from the bookies, who would you fancy taking over?
I don't really know really, but hopefully we get in a manager that knows what he's doing, and hopefully we can bring in some more transfers before the end of the season, like 1 or 2 transfers that will try and get us give us a little bit of hope of survival. But personally, it's going to be tough really. I think by Christmas when we'll be able to find out whether we stay up or not. But yeah, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, okay, mate. Okay, lovely. Right. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up there for the night. Thanks to everybody who's come on.
Thanks, guys. Good chat. Good chat.
Yeah, thanks for that. Cheers for coming on, Danny. Much appreciated, mate. Come on again sometime. Be much appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, probably next week after the next 2 games. But no, we'll see. We'll see. Like chap said down the bottom there, I think the crowd will be with us to start with tomorrow. I really do. Let's just hope that we stay in the game long enough, and as long as they're seeing some progress, some real effort, I think they'll stay with them. If we're still playing passively, it's going to be difficult. I know it'd be harsh on O'Neill. He's had barely 24 hours to take charge of the squad, but I think we just want to see a bit of effort, get stuck in, give them a game, and then even if we end up on the wrong side of the result, if there's effort there, progress, it's something to take into the next game.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And to be fair, just before we quickly leave, I think this comment here from Mike, we just need to show some passion and have a go tomorrow night up the Cherries. I think that is the key tomorrow night, regardless of what's happened against Liverpool and with the managerial position. I think basically tomorrow night we've got to make Dean Court a fortress, and we've got to get behind the team, got to get the crowd going. We normally have a great game under lights. The atmosphere is normally better than sometimes on a Saturday, the evening games. I always find that the atmosphere in the ground sometimes more electric. So I think tomorrow for us, we need to get behind the team, be that 12th man, and hopefully cheer some goals.
Yeah.
But it's been great to have you on, Danny. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much. And Manny, thank you for coming on. It's been great to have an outsider's point of view. But your points have been absolutely fantastic tonight. So I know you've gave Craig a shout out earlier. So I'm sure he'd love to have you back on again. So definitely come back on, mate. It's been great.
Absolutely, mate. And I would like to make one point. Hopefully, the next manager who comes in, I mean, obviously it's going to be O'Neill. Just one small point I'm going to make. Hopefully, the manager who comes in will sort of be a bit more consistent with the tactics and formation, because for your first 2 games against Villa and City, you had a 3-4-2-1 with Keeper Moore up top. For the defeat against my lot, you had something like a 3-1-4-2, which probably left quite a few gaps in the midfield that were exploited, although maybe Adam Smith and Zamora could have gone back a little bit, and you had Billing along with Moore. And then for the 9-0, it was a 4-2-3-1. I think one thing which probably cost Parker was he was trying to tinker a bit too much. You know, you want to find a formation that will hopefully, do well, will be a little bit more, rewarding, especially in terms of goals, and see if you can stick to that. And if O'Neill decides to put out a formation, preferably with 2 strikers up front, as opposed to just more, it could work wonders. So I'm going to wish you all luck for tomorrow, and I hope you will get some goals. And hopefully, just remember, the only place you can go when you hit rock bottom is all the way up. So keep fighting, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on, Manny. Much appreciated, mate. Speak to you soon.
Yes, boys.
Cheers, buddy.
Absolutely.
And Max, give us a quick score prediction for tomorrow then.
I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to go with, I think it'll be really tight. I'm going to be honest, it's going to be tight. If we get the atmosphere rocking and electric, Vitality, I reckon we'll take an early lead. I reckon it'll be 1-1 by like the 60th minute, and then we'll win 2-1 the last minute. I just feel it. I feel like we'll bounce back.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Mate. Yeah. Excellent.
Also, there's another thing I was going to quickly mention. I've heard about Suriki Dembele. He was, I thought he was meant to play against Norwich because he's normally on the bench for a league game. Because Parker, when we did have Parker, of course, because we haven't got him now. I thought he would have brought him on as a sub against Norwich, but apparently he wasn't going to play to stop risking injury.
There was some advanced talk, wasn't there, with a club for him to go out on loan to. That's why he hadn't featured. But now, obviously, Scott's gone. That may change now. So who knows? It'd be an interesting couple of days to see, from a transfer window perspective, to see if anybody does now leave or whether the squad stays intact. But
I think he did. Yeah, the injury. When does the transfer window close? Is it this Friday, isn't it?
No, Thursday, mate. 11 o'clock Thursday.
Yeah. So we got 2 days then.
Yeah, 2 days, mate. That's 2 days.
At least 2 signings, 1 or 2 signings.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens now, because obviously, with no manager in place, obviously, the likes of Richard Hughes and Simon Francis will probably still have some players that they might want to bring in. So it'd be interesting to see, mate. But thanks for coming on, even though it was only briefly. Okay, and we'll speak to you again soon, Max. All right.
Yep.
All right. Cheers, buddy. See you in a bit. Right. Okay. Sam, thanks for coming on. Again, I'll take it you'll be with us for cherry picking this week.
Yeah, Thursday night, mate.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Just thanks to everybody for tuning in tonight. Thanks to all our guests. Obviously, it's been a turbulent day at Dean Court. But the key is let's get behind the boys tomorrow. Let's be that important 12th man, and let's hope we can get some goals and get another win on the board, because I'm sure that will please everybody. And it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few days in terms of the next managerial appointments. So, until next time, up the cherries.